All right, we're going to take a look at some factoring. We're going to look at some solving binomials and solving some factored equations here in DeltaMath. Now, all of these pieces are, well, just pieces of what we're going to look at in the future. We're going to look at how do we factor polynomials, which is like the reverse. We've done some multiplication, right, where we multiply and we have to distribute, whether you're using FOIL or the box method, or you're just multiplying all the terms by all the other terms. What we're going to look at now is actually kind of working backwards. What if I already have an expanded polynomial and I want to factor it into its multiplied smaller polynomials or things like that? So that's kind of the big picture where we're headed. But to do that, we're going to look at some of these basic tools that we're going to use. So we're going to look at three skills here. The first one being the greatest common factor tool. So notice what we have here. We've got 49yz to the sixth minus 21x cubed y squared z cubed. Now, we're using greatest common factor. It says greatest common factor, which is what we're going to need to find, but our final solution should be factored completely. So don't just find the greatest common factor and then think you're done. You do need to factor that out, and we're going to talk about how to do all of these things. So first off, we need to find the greatest common factor. We are going to do that by looking at each of the terms individually. So I'm going to consider the coefficients, the 49 and the 21. I'm going to consider the x's, the y's, and the z's, all right? And then see which terms are, what is the greatest possible terms for each of those that I can pull out of both of these pieces. So here we go. So let's start with the 49 and the 21. So you can do this in your head, or you can do it on paper, or however you want. You do want to think about your different terms of 49, okay, and your different terms of 21. So 49, I know is 1 times 49. I've got 2 doesn't go in, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goes in. You can actually just go with your prime. So one, like go with 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11 maybe, but a lot of times at that point you've already hit them. All right, so 1, 7, 7 times 7 is 49. I could check, 9 or 11. None of those multiply in. So really I just have 3 terms here, 1, 7, and 49. Now let's go ahead and take a look at my factors here. So I've got, with 21, I've got 1, not 2, but 3 works, 3 times 7. So that tells you 7 works. 5 doesn't work, and that is going to wrap up 21. So I do notice that I have a common term here of 7. Okay, greatest common term here of 7. So in my GCF that I'm listing, my GCF is going to have a 7 in it. Next, I'm going to look at the x's. Notice I don't have an x. I've got x cubed here, but no x over here on the left. So no common terms there. I do have some y's. Notice I just have, again, my lowest exponent here is 1, though it, we don't write the 1, but we just have 1 y. And then z, my greatest common term here, is going to be z cubed. Okay? So there's my greatest common factor. So now what I need to do is I need to take my original problem, 49 yz cubed minus 21 x cubed y squared z cubed, and I need to divide it by 7yz cubed. All right, so my greatest common factor, that's going to go here. Let's put that there. So I get 7yz, and you can use shift 6 to get your exponents, z cubed, or you can use your little button right here that will pull up your keyboard. So either one of those works. So 7yz cubed, that's going out in front. Now I'm going to multiply it by whatever remains when I divide it out, okay? Because our final answer should equal our original problem when we are done. So 49, again, what I can do, let me make this maybe a little more clear. What you want to do actually is you want to think about dividing both of these sets. So 49yz cubed, well, I know that 49 divided by 7 is 7. Sorry, give me one sec here. There we go. So 7. Y divided by y is 1. Z cubed, or that should be not z cubed, that should be what? Z to the 6th. I'm sorry, I wrote that down. Wrote that down incorrectly, so that should be z to the 6th. Z to the 6th divided by z cubed, that's just going to be z cubed. Okay, z cubed. And then that's all there is on the first one. Now let's look at the second one. 21, so we'll keep the minus. 21 divided by 7, that's 3. X cubed, well, I'm not dividing by any x's, so that's going to stay the same. Y squared divided by y, you can just subtract 2 minus 1. That's going to stay there. And then z cubed divided by z cubed is 1, so that's not going to show up in our final solution. So here's my final factored form. 7yz cubed, that's my greatest common factor, times 7z cubed minus 3x cubed y. And all we did was we found our greatest common factor, which you should be able to do pretty quickly, and then divided it out, and whatever remains goes in the second parenthesis. So let's go ahead and check this answer. There we go. Okay, so they kind of walk you through that as well. Okay, and they can show you kind of the exponents here, that when you subtract or when you divide, it's the same as subtracting exponents, and here's your final answer. All right, so that's the first one. That one should hopefully not take too long. The second one is solving binomial equations. One of the parts that we're going to do in the future is after we do the factoring of the binomials, we also want to solve for the different solutions. So the next two problems or problem sets deal with finding solutions. So let me show you. This goes really quickly. So I've got x squared minus 100 equals 0. So all I want to do is I want to set the variables on one side, all of our constants and coefficients we're going to work out to the other side, and then we're going to solve. So in this case, this works out really nicely. I've got x squared is equal to 100. All right, and then I want to solve for x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to, now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Think about which numbers can be multiplied together to equal 10, or to equal 100. Well, 10 can be multiplied by 10 to get to 100. But there's another one out there too. I could also use negative 10. Negative 10 times negative 10 would also equal 100, and I don't know which one it is. It could be either one. So when we're dealing with these, you often will get two solutions. In this case, you get positive 10 and negative 10. Now let me talk you through how to submit that answer. The easiest way to do that is to use this plus or minus sign. This means positive or negative, and I'm just going to do plus or minus 10, and that's going to be my solution. But if I wanted to, I could do 10, put a comma in, and put a negative 10 as my two solutions, and they will accept either one. Okay? I like using the plus or minus, but you certainly don't have to if you want to. All right, some of these are going to be super easy, like this. X is equal to positive 7, and we're done. Okay. But there is one more type that I want to take a look at, and it looks something like, let me find a good one here. Trying to get one where we're going to get some imaginary numbers. I know that that is an option. Actually, here, I can just do this. Let's choose this one. All right, so let's take a look at this one. I've got x squared plus 64 is equal to 0. So in this case, I would solve this out. I get x squared is equal to negative 64. I'd take the square root of both sides. Okay, so I know x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 64. All right, now here's where we run into a problem. I know the square root of 64 is 8, right? So I could write this as x is equal to plus or minus 8 times the square root of negative 1. But I've still got that square root of negative 1. That's still an issue. Remember, the square root of negative 1 is the same as we call that I for imaginary numbers. And so how I would write this as a solution is I would go, okay, I don't need the square root. I would do plus or minus 8i. Okay, and you can just type I on your keyboard. It recognizes that as an imaginary number. And let's go ahead and submit that answer. All right, and there you go. So do be on the lookout. If you've got the square root of a negative number, that means you're dealing with imaginary numbers. You're still doing the plus or minus, but you are going to have to deal with putting I at the end. All right, so that's the second one. And here's the last one, solving factored equations. This is very similar to the last one. In this case, we're just taking it up a step. All we're doing is they're giving us an already factored polynomial. In the future, we'll have to do the factoring. But in this case, they've already done the factoring for us. And all we need to do then is solve to set these equal to 0. Now, notice, here's the nice thing. This is why this works really well for us. When something is set equal to 0, two things being multiplied to 0, I know that either the first one has to be 0 or the last one has to be 0. If one of the two of them are 0, then I know the whole thing will go to 0 because I'm just multiplying. There's no excuse me, there's no addition or subtraction. If I'm just multiplying, if one of the two of them is 0, then the whole thing's going to 0. So this is really easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up x minus 5 is equal to 0, and it's 7x plus 4. That is also equal to 0. All right? And then I solve them individually. So in this first case, I would get 5, x is equal to 5. In the second case, I would get 7x is equal to negative 4, or x is equal to negative 4 over 7. And that's what I would plug in as my answer. I would say, okay, it could be 5, or it could be negative 4 over 7. Again, use your comma to get multiple answers. Actually, I think you could also use, the plus or minus signs here will also do that for you. All right, so let's go ahead and check that. There we go. All right, so let's look at one last problem type. Okay, so this is a great one. Notice I've got 3 terms here being multiplied together. I've got the negative x, I've got the x plus 2, I've got 4x squared minus 81. If any one of those goes to 0, then that's going to be a possible answer. So let's look at this negative x. If that goes to, 0, that's one option. X plus 2, what number would make that go to 0? Well, negative 2 would make that go to 0. And then I've got this 4x squared minus 81. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, because this is a little bit more on the complicated side. I've got 4x squared minus 81 is equal to 0. So I've got 4x squared is equal to 81. Let's bring that over here. So I get x squared is equal to 81 over 4, and I take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to plus or minus. Now I take the square root of the top, I get 9. Take the square root of the bottom, I get 2, so plus or minus 9 halves. So that is what I would have as the solution here, plus or minus. And let's check that answer. And there we go. All right, so hopefully that's helpful. We just reviewed, greatest common factors, solving binomial equations, solving factored equations. All of this hopefully is review and won't take you too long to complete on your own. As always, you can always hit the help button, show example problem, or watch the video if you need additional help. Good luck and have fun.